Sweating bullets.
Yeah, sweating bullets. We got it done.
Yes, we did.
I guess, Coach, we haven't heard from you on that whole experience. What's that like going over to Serbia and that whole experience?
You know, that was probably my fourth time going over there, but by far the most memorable. As I've said to many people since I returned, coaching Nikola for 7 years and understanding who he is, and to see him get that emotional, just made that a moment that I'll never forget. Hollywood could not have scripted it any better, and to be there with Natalia, their daughter, his mom, his dad, and all of his friends and family was just something I'll always cherish. It was really a special moment.
What was the highlight?
For me, honestly, God, the highlight before drinking all the beer and rakia and dancing and singing was as we got there. So we flew, drove right from the airport to Sombor, put our T-shirts on, and waited in the stable. And just the moment when he came around that corner, and all the live music, and those guys, by the way, they deserve MVP awards. They played live music for, I don't know, 8 straight hours. But when the horse came around the corner, and you could see Nikola trying to understand what's going on here, and then when he realized it, and he's taking his goggles off, and the tears were coming down, and just for me, hugging him and telling him how proud I was and how much I cared about him, and how grateful he was that Josh and Tim and myself and everyone else, Felipe, Bob, Nick, Ogie, were there to support him, was just genuine. It was real. And that was the best part about it.
How much have you been talking and checking in with guys and seeing how their summers have been going so far?
Yeah, obviously, try to be in contact with as many guys as possible. Jamal, Monte, Davon, Zeke have been in the gym quite a bit lately. I was on the phone with Bones yesterday. When Jordy Fernandez left and when Tim left, reached out to all the guys to let them know, as much as I love Tim and as much as I love Jordy, it doesn't change anything about what we're doing and what our whole focus is on this offseason. The show must go on. So, but it's a fine line, Katie, of being a helicopter coach and overdoing it, giving guys their space, but making sure me and our coaches and our trainers are being in touch with guys because this is an important offseason. Guys have to make sure they're doing the necessary work to come back better individually, so collectively we can be better off as well.
What's the timeline in the process for filling that seat that Jordy exited?
Yeah, I've spoken to a few guys, and something should be announced hopefully relatively soon. The guys that I'm talking to have head coaching experience, guys that I've known for a long time, who I think can not only help myself, but really enhance our coaching staff and help our team as well. When you look at our team, there's a lot of interest in people coming here because of the success that we've had, how we do things, and more importantly, who we do it with. And so hopefully we'll have an announcement sooner rather than later.
Is there a specific skill set or some personality trait you're looking for that seat? Defensive mind, offensive mind, something like that? Yeah,
obviously with Jordy leaving, he was kind of the lead. The funny thing is, we always say David Adelman's the offensive coordinator. We're all coaches, and I'm involved in everything that we do. So the guy that I'm going to bring in will probably be a guy that I have lead up the defensive side of the ball, along with Popeye, along with Charles Clask, and obviously there's a lot of input from me. But also a guy that's been around, as I mentioned, having been a head coach before, who understands the grind of the season and kind of what it's like being in that seat. And so I have a pretty good idea of who that guy is, and hopefully we can get that done really soon.
Michael, how comfortable are you working with Calvin? Sorry, let him in.
That is exactly the question I was going to ask. So it's all good.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that Vinny's asking instead of you.
I've lost my edge, man.
I didn't know you never had an edge. Say it again.
How comfortable are you working with Calvin, and does the change in leadership in the front office this offseason change anything for you in terms of how involved you are in the process?
It's funny. I talked to Tim 1,000 times throughout the whole process. I would not be here without Tim Conley. Like and I'm going to be close friends with Tim. We're going to miss him and Nega and their kids. But like for me, so much more was made of that than needed to be. Like nothing changes. Nothing. I mean, like we have a good thing going. From ownership. I told Josh right when it happened. I said I fully endorse Calvin Booth. I think Calvin, aside from being a tremendous human being, is more than ready for this opportunity to lead this team in that position. It allows us to have continuity, and I think the fact that Calvin and I already have a relationship allows for this to kind of be really smooth. And I told Josh and Calvin, I'm here to do whatever you guys need. Draft, trades, free agency. After 7 years, I think I have a pretty good feel for who we are, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and how we can address those. So a lot of constant communication. I love my conversations with Calvin right now. I love his thought process on how we can improve this team. You guys already know what I said when our season ended, how I felt how important this offseason was, and how we have to be a much better defensive team. You can't be 15th. The last 4 teams playing in the NBA were in the top 5 defensively. We have to find a way to be better. That's on me as a coach, but it's also on adding some pieces that can also help that out. But to answer your question, Vinny, I'm really comfortable with Calvin, and I'm thrilled for him to have this opportunity. He has earned this opportunity, and I have zero doubt that he will excel in his new position.
You talk about looking for at these workouts to maybe find that in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you watch the finals right now, it's defensive versatility. I mean, Boston is a historically good defensive team. They switch almost everything, and they have big guys that can sit down and guard smalls. And they have smalls that can switch on to bigs and fight. So you're looking for that defensive versatility, and the guys that can, if I'm a big, can I switch onto a small and contain? If I'm a smaller player, can I switch onto a big and fight and make life really hard for that guy where I'm not just giving in, whether it's position or space in the post. So that's one of the things I look at, because you can watch all the film in the world, you can look at the stats. When guys come in our gym, I'm looking for intangibles. I'm looking for how competitive is he? Is he vocal? Does he fight? Does he have a basketball IQ? Those are the type of things that I look for in these workouts, as well as just getting a chance to get to know the kid personally. What kind of personality does he have? So, those are the types of things that, for me as a head coach, I'm always kind of looking at and evaluating as players come in.
Coach,
I thought you retired, man.
I'm back.
He's back. Wow, he's like Tom Brady. Unbelievable.
It's a great comp.
TV 12.
This offseason is going to be longer for you guys than any of the previous ones. And obviously you would have preferred for it to be a short offseason, having a long playoff run and whatever. What do you think this team can learn kind of during that break? And do you think it's going to be good for you guys, just kind of getting a mental reset?
Well, I'll start with that one, Ryan. I think, yes. I think we have played a lot of basketball the last, 2-3 years, whatever it's been. So I think getting back to a normal offseason will allow guys like Nikola to kind of recharge, both mentally, physically, emotionally. And that's so important. What he's done the last 2 years is incredible. Allow guys like Michael and Jamal to continue to rehab and get healthy, so they can attack, and come into next season as close to 100% as possible. I learned when I first got in the league from Jeff Van Gundy, your goal in the NBA is to have short summers. You want a short summer because that means you're playing into June every year. That wasn't the case this year. I feel next year, if we add the right pieces, if we get healthy, we're going to put ourselves back in position to be a true contender. Everybody says they're a contender, but how many teams are really contenders to win a championship? So we can use this offseason to recharge. We can use the offseason to improve individually. We can use this offseason to improve as a team, using the draft, using free agency, using trade. So I think it's a really important time for us. Nikola's window is only open so long. Let's do everything we can to attack this and put the best team possible on that floor.
I want to go back to the finals and some of the trends you're talking about as you watch a season go through the playoffs. Switch everything, great Can Denver do that? And if not, is there some other trend that you've seen throughout these playoffs that say, hey, that's sort of what we can take away as a ticket to success?
Well, I just so you know, I just got back from Copenhagen. I was on tour with Nathaniel Rateliff. I was more worried about going on tour and having a good time than watching all these finals games. But with that being said, can we be a team that switches as much as Boston? I don't think with Nikola we'll ever be a team that can switch 1 through 5 consistently. Can we do it in spurts? Can we do it at times? Sure we can. But I think when Nikola's out of the game, I think you can get a little bit more creative. So whether that's using more pressure defense, whether that's, we use zone a little bit this year, more on baseline out of bounds, but getting a little bit more creative with their zone. Miami's a team that had a lot of success with zone. Dallas, years ago, Rick Carlisle won a championship playing zone defense. So I think I'm challenging myself, I'm challenging our coaching staff to find ways. All right, we know that we struggle to contain, we know we don't have any shot blocking. Well, how do we improve that aside from asking Calvin Booth to help us? Because that's not just fair to say, all right, Calvin, it's on you. No, it's also on us. So that's when I learned this from Pete Gillen when I was coaching in college. If the other team's half-court offense is better than your half-court defense, you got to mix things up. You got to find a way to hide some of those guys, and using a zone, using a press, are some of the things that we're looking at, and trying to be a little bit more creative on that end of the floor.
Is it just a skill thing, or is there also sort of a basketball IQ thing with teams like Boston and Golden State that can adjust 4 or 5 different ways within the course of a quarter or a game?
Yeah, I think I think when you look at Boston specifically, I think what they have is, their point guard is the defensive player of the year, first guy since Gary Payton. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Al Horford. I don't know if there's a weak defender in that group. They have 5+ defenders on the court at one time. Not many teams can say that. And Ime Udoka's done a hell of a job. I'm taking nothing away from him. So, it's IQ, it's game plan, it's buy-in, it's commitment. And there's a reason those teams have played and have the success that they've had. There's a reason that, granted, we played against a hell of a team. We lost to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. They won it that year. Lost to Phoenix. They lost in the NBA Finals. We lost to Golden State, who was in the NBA Finals. So we've played against some really talented teams that have knocked us out, but that's no excuse. We have to be better. And, Boston is somebody that you'd love to emulate, but you also have to stay true to your own personnel. Like Nikola is not going to be Robert Williams. So how do we use him in a way that he can help us become the best defensive team that we can?
Coach, I'm sure you've been around enough. I know you said you were in Copenhagen, but you talked about how well the fans were during your guys' playoff series. You felt that at all about this Avs series and this Avs hype, and does that kind of maybe get you excited if you guys make that deep run and what that would feel like? Yeah,
well, it's funny. I go back to when we were in the bubble. What I hated, the only negative about the run we made in the bubble is that we weren't here in Denver to feel it. I was talking to people in the neighborhood. My sister who lives down the block, they were saying it was incredible. Like, it hadn't been like that in a long time. We didn't get a chance to really experience that. But being here for the Avs and watching that, I sent Jared a message the other day, like, just telling him, man, you guys are crushing it. So happy for you. And I hope you guys are able to bring home the Stanley Cup. But to see how crazy the city is behind them, how packed this place is, and how tough it is, what the environment they've created is, it's just something we want to follow. And, when I speak to Stan and Josh Kroenke, man, I know this. They are dying to bring home an NBA championship to Denver. And that's what motivates me, Calvin, and everyone else in this building. And hopefully, depending on who wins the Tampa Bay Rangers series, we can bring the cup back here to Denver. And I'll be a big fan trying to support those guys. All right. Good to see everybody.